Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing one of the most fun Pokemon that you can use from the Season 26 balance update, and that is Shadow Garchomp, which just got triple buffed. Garchomp's Sand Tomb got more damage, it just got access to Twister, and its fast move Mudshot got improved. Now, we're not using Mudshot today, we're going to be using Dragon Tail, but still, despite the fact that Garchomp is definitely not a pick that should be used for climbing, I ended up going extremely positive with it, pairing it up with a backline of my new Rank 2 Lapras from the Seattle Regional Championships and the newly buffed Swallow. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and in game number 1, we've got a Battle of Shadows, Shadow Garchomp into Shadow Malamar. Now, Shadow Malamar is kind of the king at just absolutely destroying Pokemon neutrally, but Garchomp has Dragon Tail and the ability to apply debuffs with Sand Tomb. Shadow Twister is such an incredible offensive threat that a lot of trainers really like to invest shields, so you can very safely go for Sand Tomb baits. My opponent tries to CMP tie the Garchomp there, but even if they didn't, I was still going to be able to fully farm them down. They pivot out into Corviknight. Corviknight is a bit of a weak spot for this team, but I'm going to send in my only answer, which is the Lapras. Now, this Lapras I caught off of a lure at the Seattle Regionals, and I really have never had a good IV Great League Lapras, so I am so happy to finally have a very, very high rank. I used my final Elite Charge TM to get Ice Beam on it, and it was a lot of fun to use today as well. It definitely had some very clutch low HP survives that my old Lapras definitely would not have had. Corviknight is going to go for the payback. This time we do not get a low HP survive. I send in Swalot, and my opponent reveals their final Pokemon as Licky. Licky is very, very bulky, but so is Swalot. Swalot now has 5-4 pacing to Sludge. This means that it did lose some of its fast move pressure, but it is incredibly fast to get the charge attacks. Speaking of charge attacks, I have 2 of them banked on the Shadow Garchomp. Twister lands devastating damage, and now I just CMP tie the Licky with the Sand Tomb. This means Licky, not only are they trapped into firing off the Body Slam, they lost their final shield, they're debuffed, and Swalot is looking to sweep. My opponent pivots back into the Corviknight, resetting that defense drop. I try and click the Sludge, but unfortunately I accidentally overfarm too much and give them an Air Cutter. Even though Air Cutter does get the boost, I should still be in a pretty good spot. I overfarm, take the knockout with Sludge onto the Corviknight, and now I just have to watch for whatever my opponent decides to bring in. If it's the Malamar, then I should be in a pretty good spot to throw 1 and the Sludge, and this will give me enough energy to outpace the Licky and win the game. So Sludge will knock out the Malamar, back in comes Licky, and we get the outpace with the Swalot. So game number 1, Shadow Garchomp just completely took over, and we get the win. Hopping into game number 2, leading Shadow Garchomp into Fearow. I'm very excited to make Fearow shield some Sand Tomb baits. I'm going to throw 5 in the move. My opponent tries for a catch onto Quagsire. I'm able to hold on to my energy, and now I will go for the Sand Tomb bait. Quagsire calls the bait, a nice bait call from my opponent, but Sand Tomb does real damage, so even a bait call, they've still lost a lot of HP. I'm not quite going to get the farm down, so I'm just going to go for an Aqua Tail catch onto the Lapras. The fact that my opponent safe switched to Quagsire and there was a Fearow on the lead makes me think it could be double Mudboy. And if that's the case, then I'm going to need to reposition here and put Swalot on the Fearow and then save the Garchomp for destroying whatever Mudboy is in the back. Sparkling Aria forces a shield from the Fearow. Fearow did bank a ton of energy, but Lapras is bulky enough that they're going to have to throw both Drill Pecks if they want to secure the knockout. So they end up losing almost all of their stored energy. Lapras absolutely did its job, and now I can send in the Swalot. Swalot is going to get outpaced here, and Drill Run is super effective, but I can always survive one Drill Run. My opponent tries for a catch, and it's Swampert in the back. I'm just going straight Sand Tomb. There's no reason to even go for the Twister. They end up no-shielding the first, but I'm already at Sand Tomb number 2, and this Swampert is just getting destroyed. Sand Tomb takes the knockout. In comes Fearow. Fearow farms down, but pays a very heavy price. Swalot already just shy of the back-to-back Sludges. I know that I can tank any one move. They go for the Drill Run, but this is a Swalot. Swalot is just too bulky, shaking off the super effective damage, making it to the back-to-back Sludges, and that is going to be a win. Shadow Garchomp, again, putting so much pressure onto the opposing team. While this definitely isn't a meta Pokemon, it is absolutely one of the most fun Pokemon that you can run. We move to the next match, Shadow Garchomp against Pelipper. Pelipper wanting to put the first shield pressure of the match onto me, so they will fire off their Weather Ball immediately. There's nothing I love more than making flying type shield Sand Tomb baits, so I'm going to fire off the Sand Tomb after Dragon Tail and get a shield from the Pelipper. Pelipper again throws instantly, so they really want to get my shields down. With the debuff, I wonder if I can get a full farm down here. It's going to be very close. It turns out I would barely miss it, so I sniped them with the Psy Wave. And again, I just have so much stored energy on that Garchomp in the back. My opponent sends in Gourgeist. Unfortunately, I end up getting a bit of lag there, so I end up missing a Psy Wave or two as they fire off the Shadow Ball with Gourgeist. Shadow Ball does do a lot more damage than Seed Bomb, so even though it is only neutral, that's just the difference in efficiency between the two moves. My opponent reveals their final Pokemon is Unova Stunfisk. Stunfisk shields the first Aria, but I already have a second one loaded. I'm just going to stay on the field with the Lapras until the last second and get a catch of a discharge onto Swalot. Now, Stunfisk did get arguably nerfed this season, because Mud Bomb, while it now does more damage, also costs more energy. Mud Bomb is going to do some pretty considerable damage to the Swalot, but Swalot is still able to hang on and make the Ice Beam. Ice Beam is going to be game over for that Stunfisk. All that's left in the back is the Gourgeist. And I don't even need to make it to an Ice Beam. I can just fire off the Sludge because I have energy stored on the Shadow Garchomp. In comes Shadow Garchomp. Twister is loaded. This is going to be good night, Gourgeist. And that is a good game. Hopping into the next match, we've got a very glassy showdown. Shadow Garchomp against Shadow Primeape. Their Karate Chops do a lot of damage to Garchomp, and my Dragon Tails are doing huge damage in return. My opponent is going to go for a very nice catch as they're able to catch the Sand Tomb onto Corviknight and, importantly, get a Sand Attack Sneak. That sneak means that I can only do 2 Dragon Tails before sending in the Lapras. I'm really hoping that with that defense drop that's applied to the Corviknight, I can Psywave it into Ice Beam range and knock them out before they make their second payback. It's going to be very, very close. I farm up a ton of energy on the Lapras, fire off the Ice Beam. I really need this to knock out. Ice Beam lands, Corviknight barely survives. That is a little bit unfortunate, as Corviknight on 1 HP makes the payback, but now it's my turn to live on 1 HP, the rank 2 Lapras coming in clutch. Back in comes the Primeape, getting an energy head start, but I had rebanked a bunch of energy on the Garchomp after their catch, so I already have the Sand Tomb. Sand Tomb forces the shield, and I'm always just going to be shielding the Garchomp because I know that I can guarantee a debuff on whatever they have in the back. Swalot does not typically need shields. Garchomp gets the farm down in the back. There's a Clodsire, and I immediately fire off the Sand Tomb on alignment, because once I apply this debuff, I should be able to take them out with a combination of Mud Shots and Ice Beam. Swalot hits the field. It was very important that I fire off that Sand Tomb on alignment to ensure that they did not get a big energy head start, because without it, they just have no way of winning. Earthquake lands, but Swalot survives. They're going to need to make a Stone Edge, and because I didn't give them the energy lead, they are simply not going to get there. We make the Ice Beam, knock out the Clodsire, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, leading Shadow Garchomp into Shadow Greninja, and this matchup is going to be fun. Greninja staying in. Look at the Dragon Tails Garchomp, so oppressive. For the second game in a row, my opponent catches the Sand Tomb onto Corviknight, but somehow this is still fine. This team is very weak to Corviknight, so my opponents consistently letting their Corviknight get debuffed makes Lapras' job so much easier. Since my opponent didn't get a Sand Attack Sneak on their catch, I'm able to rebank the Twister for later and then bring in the Lapras. This time I'm hoping that I can Sparkling Aria into a farm down, so I fire off the Aria. That's going to get Corviknight very, very low. Corviknight pivots into the Shadow Greninja, but I just don't believe Night Slash is knocking me out. Night Slash lands, Lapras survives, and Lapras will make it to the Sparkling Aria. Sparkling Aria should be forcing a shield from my opponent. I pivot back into the Garchomp, and I'm absolutely stunned to learn that I lose charge stack priority. I know that Greninja is very frail, but this is a great league Garchomp. I was very confident I was winning that charge stack priority tie, and it turns out that confidence was misplaced. In the back, my opponent has Galarian Weezing, a very cool pick, and Weezing is about to get absolutely destroyed by the Sand Tomb unless they shield. So Weezing is now debuffed. I can send in the Swalot, and Swalot should be in a very good spot to close out this game. Weezing goes for a Brutal Swing, so it turns out they do not have Overheat, and my opponent will go for the combo play with the Payback from Corviknight. Payback lands, but Swalot is just so incredibly bulky. Now you may notice these battles were being played after midnight, so you might ask, Henry, why did you click the Ice Beam? Well, in the moment, honestly, I forgot that Sludge would 2-shot here, and I thought that I needed an Ice Beam plus a Sludge. It turns out I'm just mistaken here, and 2 Sludges would have absolutely taken the knockout, as Sludge is a pretty efficient attack. So in the moment, I was thinking that I needed Ice Beam plus Sludge, but I was just completely mistaken. I could have just gone double Sludge and made that game a lot easier. We've got a tough opponent in the next match, battling against regional champion Dunebug. Shadow Garchomp into Flamigo. Flamigo does have a pacing advantage here as it's 5 wing attacks to the upper hand. I shield up the Garchomp. Upper hand does get the debuff, and that's not what I'm hoping to see. I'm expecting my opponent to try and call the Sand Tomb bait here, so I actually go for the Twister, and bad news for me, he actually decides to respect it. If there's a consolation prize, it looks like even with me being debuffed, I should still be able to farm down. We actually simultaneously switch Lapras into Shadow Quagsire. Now this is not a great spot to be in, because Quagsire has incredibly fast pacing with the Mudshot rework, and Stone Edge is going to connect for devastating damage. Here, I will go for the Ice Beam, as Ice Beam will do more damage than Sparkling Aria. Ice Beam is going to land. That does get Quagsire very low, and he wants to preserve as much HP as possible on the Quagsire, so he fires off the Aqua Tail instantly. I decide that I'm going to play for energy on Swalot. Swalot, going to try for a farm down. It looks like I did get one turn bring in there, which is a little bit unfortunate. He's able to pivot out and send in Flamigo. Flamigo, now very close to a charge stack. I believe they have it banked. I try and snipe with the Dragon Tail, but he pauses the turn, fires off the upper hand, and I lose all my energy. That is very unfortunate. I felt like my one way back in the game was if I can snipe him with the Dragon Tail, then I would exit with the back-to-back Twisters and be in a really good spot. But unfortunately, I did not. He read the play, and that's going to cost me as he has his own Swalot in the back. If I got the farm down, Garchomp was in a position to sweep, but unfortunately, it's just a great read by him. We move to the next match, and I see a Pokemon that I was not expecting to see whatsoever as I lead Shadow Garchomp into Gastrodon. Gastrodon, a former meta menace, it has now been nerfed to the point where it is pretty mediocre. I'm able to get a shield and get a catch, and my opponent sends out an astonished Dunsparce, and so far this opponent's team has just left me with nothing but questions and no answers anywhere to be seen. They land the Rock Slide. I'm going to fire off the Sparkling Aria. I'm hoping that a Sparkling Aria into an Ice Beam plus the Psy Waves will be enough to secure the knockout. But Dunsparce is very, very bulky. This is going to be close. I fire off the Ice Beam. Come on, Lapras. Ice Beam lands. Oh, they're very, very low. No, they farm me down, and they survive on 1 HP. Whatever I bring in, I'm going to have to shield. I don't want to reveal the Swalot, so I send in the Garchomp, and I shield in exchange for the Dragon Tail. My opponent sends back in the Gastrodon. I've already revealed Sand Tomb, so this time I decide to full send the Twister. The Twister does get shielded, and that is a problem. I think I needed to go for the Sand Tomb to ensure that this Ice Beam would secure the KO. So I put up the shield. My opponent is a double nuke Gastrodon. What is happening? And in the back, they have Clodsire. So they're running a team that has 3 ground coverage moves. They have Earth Power on the Gastrodon, they have Earthquake on the Clodsire, and Drill Run on the Dunsparce. Unfortunately, my Swalot really had nowhere it could go. However, I don't think anyone told Swalot that. I'm able to tank the Earthquake, fire off the back-to-back Ice Beams, switch into the Shadow Garchomp, get the Dragon Tail down, and exit with the Twister loaded. Somehow, impossibly, we claw our way back, Twister lands, down goes Gastrodon, and that is a good game. Hopping into the next match, picking up a bit of a tricky lead, Shadow Garchomp into Annihilape. A lot of people really like to throw their charge stacks immediately at Garchomp because they don't want to give up shields early. However, Garchomp is very happy to take whatever free energy it can get because I'm just looking to try and spam out these Sand Tombs. My opponent safe switches into a Celio. Even 1 Powder Snow landing was critical HP lost on the Garchomp, and I will respond with Lapras. This would be a really good moment to have Skull Bash. Unfortunately, I do not have Skull Bash. The Powder Snows are going to be double resisted, but Celio has incredibly fast Body Slam spam, and that is absolutely going to add up throughout the course of this battle. In the meantime, I'm returning fire with the Sparkling Aria. It's not doing much, but the Psy Waves are slowly chipping away at their health bar. Celio, even if they go for 2 more Body Slams, it's still not going to be enough to secure the knockout. That's the power of the double resistance to that Powder Snow. Another Sparkling Aria, another Celio no shield. I should now be in a spot where I can hold all this energy and just Psy Wave down the Celio. This Body Slam will get me very low. I have to watch for a snipe attempt. There it is. They send in the Wigglytuff, but I'm able to react in time and fire off the Sparkling Aria. They shield the Wigglytuff. In comes Swalot. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We get a dream lead in the next match, Shadow Garchomp into Stunfisk. My opponent safe switches into Corviknight, and this is very, very tricky. I'm going to have to stay in here and go for a Sand Tomb simply because I do not have a good answer to the Corviknight. So I give them a massive energy head start, but with the debuff applied, my Psy Waves do extra damage, and Lapras should be able to clean up this mid game. I'm going to try and farm up to the back-to-back Sparkling Arias. I know Corviknight is going to make a second payback, but I haven't taken a lot of sand attack damage, and that means with the new high-rank Lapras on very, very low HP, I'm able to double up on Arias. Sparkling Aria knocks out the Corviknight. I exit with the Sparkling Aria for the Unova Stunfisk, and I should just be in a completely winning position, I would imagine, from here on out, because I have a Shadow Garchomp at advantage. My opponent reveals their final Pokemon is a Dusclops. Again, early days of the season, you see some Pokemon that maybe you haven't seen in quite some time. Now, Dusclops is just getting absolutely melted by these Dragon Tails. I'm going to be playing to the CMP tie here. They're now at the double Shadow Punch. Even though Ice Punch is double super effective, they have no reason to throw anything other than Shadow Punch because Garchomp is just so low. They fire off their energy back to back. I'm going to be shielding and getting the Dragon Tail through. My opponent pivots back into the Stunfisk. I try for a catch, and unfortunately my catch didn't register. Mud Bomb lands, down goes the Garchomp, and suddenly I might be losing this game. My saving grace might be the fact that the Stunfisk is so low that I can probably get away with throwing Sludge at it. Even though Sludge is going to be resisted, their Stunfisk is already deep into the red HP. So I fire off the Sludge, Stunfisk no shield, Swalot gets the Mud Shot down, and that will secure the win as Swalot exits the matchup healthy enough to survive one Shadow Punch. Sludge will get the shield. I assume I can probably win the game with another Sludge, but to be safe, I'm just going to go for the Ice Beam since I already have it. Shadow Punch is going to connect, Swalot survives, and we get the Ice Beam. So a little bit scary there because we ended up losing a move on the Garchomp, but luckily, Swalot, it's just too bulky, so we're able to escape with the win. And now some final thoughts on Shadow Garchomp with its new triple buff and the team as a whole. Shadow Garchomp has probably been the most fun Pokemon that I've gotten to use all season. Shadow Garchomp is a Pokemon that you wouldn't ever really expect to have any kind of play in the Open Great League, so the fact that I was able to take it for a spin and have winning games and winning sets is something that I'm very, very happy about. Even so, I still firmly believe this is in the territory of a Pokemon for fun rather than a Pokemon for climbing, and that's just due to the fact that this Pokemon has a very low stat product. It is a Master League Pokemon, which means it's such a low level in the Great League that unfortunately, it just doesn't really have the stats to compete. It's very attack weighted, and even mild fast move pressure can just completely run this Pokemon over. However, man, is it fun. And I think that there's no more perfect time than to try and run a Funmon than prior to ELO reveal. Because currently, we're all just waiting for ELO reveal, we're getting through our early ranks, and Shadow Garchomp can really catch some people off guard. When it comes to Swalot, I think Swalot ended up being a pretty nice core pairing. If I ever saw a Corviknight on the lead, I would probably just lose the game immediately, but luckily I never did. The only Corviknights I saw were on the safe swap. People love to try and catch Sand Tombs, and that really helped Lapras out as far as being able to get rid of Corviknight and then allow the Swalot Garchomp duo to actually put in some pretty nice work. I do think that Swalot, while it really appreciates the pacing, I think it probably stays in anti-meta territory as well, just because it has some truly catastrophic matchups. Matchups like Empoleon and Corviknight, which are so common. Swalot really has no coverage there, and with Mudshot doing less damage, it makes the Steel matchups like Empoleon even worse. So, I think it's a very competent Go Battle League Mon. You'll be able to use Swalot and have some really nice results. I don't think it'll be a big competitive player, just because in competitive, there's a lot of Steel. There's a lot of Corviknight, there's a lot of Empoleon, but this team going positive across all sets that I used with it is definitely not something that I expected, but man, today was a good day in the Go Battle League. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated. It helps me do what I do. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.